I never expected that a simple business trip would trap me in a web of temptation and contradictory feelings. At the age of 38, I was working as a financial consultant in Toronto, juggling a hard job and a failing marriage. My husband, David, and I had been married for 10 years, and while we still loved each other dearly, the spark that had previously defined our relationship had dissipated into a comfortable but uninspired routine. My profession involved regular travel, which often made me feel distant from my personal life. I would spend days in sterile hotel rooms, hopping from one conference to the next, with only quick phone calls home to preserve a semblance of contact with David. During one of these journeys to Montreal, I met Paul, a new client whose presence would upend the delicate balance I had established in my life. Paul was in his early 40s and the CEO of a rapidly expanding technology business that had recently received considerable funding. He was ambitious, quick-witted, and emanated a compelling confidence that made it clear why he had been so successful. His charm and commanding presence in a room struck me from the moment we met. He had an enthusiasm that was impossible to ignore, and I found myself looking forward to our encounters more than I should have. During one of these meetings, Paul recommended that we continue the discussion over dinner. "We have a lot to talk about, and I feel like we're only getting started," he remarked with a lovely smile. "Let's grab a bite and keep talking." I hesitated for a while, realizing that our professional boundaries were beginning to merge. But I dismissed it as just another business meal, which happens frequently in my area of work. "Sure, why not?" I agreed and smiled back. "Let's do it." We ended up at a beautiful French bistro near my hotel, with dim lighting and free-flowing wine. As we settled into our seats, I felt the typical surge of adrenaline that comes with completing a major transaction. But tonight, there was something else, a surge of enthusiasm unrelated to work. Paul was easy to chat to, and as the evening proceeded, the conversation drifted from business to more personal matters. We discussed our favorite travel spots, spoke anecdotes about our families, and even chuckled at the oddities of our various sectors. It felt relaxed and natural, like meeting up with an old friend rather than dining with a client. But as the night progressed, I couldn't help but notice tiny alterations in Paul's demeanor. The way his gaze stayed on me for too long, the way his comments veered into territory that felt more personal than professional. "You're really something, Emma," he said at one point, swirling his wine carefully. "You're smart, driven, and don't put up with crap. It's refreshing." I laughed, attempting to brush off the compliment. "Thank you, Paul. I've had to be tough in this industry. It is not always easy." "I bet," he responded, leaning in slightly. "But you do it so gracefully. It is impressive." There was a period of silence, and the air between us was filled with unsaid tension. I knew I should direct the conversation back to more stable ground, but the wine and the warmth of the evening had weakened my resolve. I found myself enjoying the attention, the sense of being recognized and appreciated in a manner I hadn't experienced in a long time. As dinner came to an end, Paul suggested we have a nightcap in my hotel's bar. "Just one more drink," he pleaded, his smile beguiling. "It's still early, and I'm not quite ready for the night to end." I hesitated, the sensible side of my mind telling me to retire for the night. But the appeal of his companionship was too much to resist, and I accepted despite my better judgment. "All right, one more drink," I responded, attempting to maintain a casual tone. But just one. We made our way to the hotel bar, a modern, softly lighted area that was virtually unoccupied at this hour. We found a quiet area, ordered drinks, and resumed our talk. But this time, the mood was different, more intimate and intense. I could feel Paul's eyes on me, his intensity drawing me in. "Emma, can I be honest with you?" he asked abruptly, his voice low and serious. "Of course," I said, feeling a flutter of apprehension. He hesitated, as if he were thinking carefully about his comments. "I have truly loved getting to know you, more what I had imagined. I can't help but sense that there's something between us." My breath froze in my throat, a combination of surprise and a hint of something deeper, something I didn't want to admit. "Paul, we've just met," I remarked, attempting to reduce the tension. "And we are working together." "It's complicated, I know," he said, his stare steadfast. "I'm not trying to make things difficult, but I've learnt that life is too short to ignore your feelings. And right now, Emma, I feel connected to you." His words hung in the air, laden with implications. I knew this was a line I shouldn't cross. I was married, and my devotion should be with David. But the reality was, I couldn't recall the last time I felt this type of connection, this feeling of being truly noticed and desired. "Paul, I'm married," I reminded him, but my voice lacked conviction. We can't do this." He nodded with an honest expression. "I respect that, and I am not asking you to do anything that you are not comfortable with. But I had to tell you how I felt, even if nothing comes from it." A part of me wanted to get up and leave before the night became any more out of hand. But I lingered, torn between the allure of the moment and the gravity of my obligations. I knew I needed to say goodnight, escape to the safety of my hotel room, and put an end to the mounting temptation. But when Paul reached across the table and softly touched my hand, I did not back away. "Emma," he whispered softly, his thumb gently stroking against my knuckles. "I don't want to complicate matters for you, but I don't want to lose out on something that feels genuine." I glanced at him, my mind whirling with contradictory ideas. I was married and loved David, but there was no denying the connection I had with Paul. It was exhilarating, euphoric, and completely wrong. But the more I tried to convince myself to leave, the more I wanted to stay. "Paul?" I began, but my voice trailed off as the gravity of the situation hit me. He softly squeezed my hand, keeping his gaze fixed on mine. "You don't have to decide anything tonight," he replied calmly. "But if you ever want to talk or need someone to understand, I am here." I nodded, feeling a combination of relief and regret. "Thank you," I said softly, drawing my hand away, "but I think I need to call it a night." Paul bowed respectfully, acknowledging my decision. "Of course. I did not mean to push. I apologize if I overstepped." "It's okay," I responded, rising up and grabbing my belongings. "I appreciate your candor. I just need some time to think." He smiled, with a hint of disappointment in his eyes. "Take as much time as you need, Emma. I am not going anywhere." We exchanged goodbyes and I returned to my hotel room, my head a tornado of emotions. I knew I had made the correct decision by walking away, but the experience with Paul had triggered something in me that I couldn't ignore. I spent the remainder of the night tossing and turning, repeating our talk, and contemplating the state of my marriage to David. The next day, I attempted to concentrate on work, immersing myself in meetings and emails to divert myself. However, every time I checked my phone, I found myself yearning for a message from Paul. It was silly, I realized, yet the draw remained, a persistent whisper in the back of my mind. That evening, while I was packing my belongings to return to Toronto, I received a text from Paul. "Hello, Emma. I hope you're doing well. I apologize if I made things awkward. If you want to talk, I'm available." I stared at the message, my heart pounding. I knew that reacting would only make things worse, but the desire to reach out was too strong to resist. I responded quickly before I could second-guess myself. "Thank you, Paul. I'm okay. I just have a lot on my mind. Safe travels." He responded fast, "You too. And if you ever need a friend, you can find me." As I boarded my journey home, I couldn't shake the sense that I was at a crossroads. On the one hand, I had my marriage to David, which was founded on years of shared experiences, comfort, and security. On the other hand, there was an obvious spark I felt with Paul, a connection that caused me to reconsider all I thought I understood about myself. When I returned to Toronto, David greeted me at the airport, his familiar smile and warm embrace providing wonderful comfort. But even as I hugged him, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling of dissatisfaction that had settled in my head. I wanted to be happy and fulfilled in my marriage, but the truth was that those brief moments with Paul made me feel more alive than I had in a long time. Over the next few weeks, I attempted to focus on my marriage, attempting to reconnect with David and reignite the spark that had dissipated over the years. We went on dates, planned weekend vacations, and tried to speak more openly. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't ignore the lingering memories of Paul and what may have been. Then one evening, while working late at the office, I received another message from Paul. "I had been thinking about you, Emma. I know it's complicated, but I can't help it. I would want to see you again, even if only as friends. There is no pressure." I stared at the message, my heart racing. I knew meeting Paul again would muddy the lines even more, even jeopardizing my marriage, but the draw was as strong as ever and I couldn't resist it. Maybe we can get a coffee sometime, just to catch up. We decided to meet in a quiet cafe, a neutral space where we could talk without the pressures of a formal business setting. When I stepped in, Paul was already there, his face a mix of hope and uncertainty. He smiled warmly at me, and I felt a familiar flutter in my chest as I sat across from him. "Thanks for meeting me," he replied, his voice easygoing but his gaze fierce. "I wasn't sure if you'd want to." "It's good to see you," I said, my voice gentle. "I've been thinking about a lot of things." We spent the next hour talking, attempting to keep the discussion light and amicable. But the underlying tension was tough to ignore, and as the cafe began to empty, I realized we were getting closer to the subject we had avoided. "Emma?" Paul replied abruptly, his tone serious. "I'm not going to pretend that I don't still have feelings for you. But I respect your boundaries and don't want to make things difficult for you." I gazed at him, my thoughts whirling. I had come here looking for clarity, yet all I felt was a jumbled mess of emotions. I wanted to do the right thing, protect my marriage and my integrity, but the attraction to Paul was overpowering. "Paul, I don't know what to do," I admitted, my voice trembling. "I am married and love David. But I can't deny how I feel when I am with you." He reached across the table and softly covered mine. "You don't need to have all the answers right now," he added quietly, "but know that I'm here, no matter what you decide." We sat there with the weight of our decisions weighing down on us. I knew the route ahead would be difficult, and there would be no easy answers. But as I looked at Paul, I realized that often the most difficult decisions are the ones that get us where we need to go. As we said our goodbyes, I had a sense of calm, knowing that whatever came next, I would confront it with honesty and courage. Whether it meant recommitting to my marriage or investigating the relationship with Paul, I realized I couldn't keep living in ambiguity. And as I walked out of the cafe, I felt a little but hopeful sense of calm. One step at a time, I'd figure it out.